Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is episode 2 of my Let's Go Nuts Stamp Set of the Month series. So every Tuesday in the month of October, I will be bringing you new ideas with this cute stamp set from Fawn. If you missed episode 1, I will have it linked for you below, where I created a Z-fold slimline card. Now I have to say thank you so much to all of you who commented on that video. Your names were entered into a drawing, and I have randomly selected one person that will win that card. Their name will appear across the screen right now. Thank you so much for all your love and support, and if you would like to win today's card, then just leave a comment below and I will randomly select one winner that will be announced on episode 3 next Tuesday. All right, so for today's card, I was inspired by Jen. If you're watching, you told me I should make a card with the squirrels gathering all the nuts. So that is what I'm doing today. It's going to be a pull tab card, so that's exciting with some lift the flaps. So much fun, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's take a look at all the things I'm going to use, starting with the Let's Go Nuts stamp set, a Bug Deal stamp set, the Acorn House die set, the large Slimline with sliders die set, the stitched Hillside borders, and the Grassy border. I will also use the pull tab die set, the original, plus the new add-on for the camera because it has this long piece, and then the Lift the Flap Meadow die set. I picked out all the images that I wanted for this card and stamped them out with Fawn jet black ink on some COPIC friendly cardstock. And then I had some images I wanted multiples of, so I am stamping those by hand. Woo. Next, I traced the outline of a die cut Acorn house, and then I'm going to stamp inside of that, leaving a white border around the edge and not going up into the top part, which would be like the cap of the acorn. And this is going to be the piece that pulls out of the acorn house, because these squirrels have filled the acorn house with all their acorns that they are storing up for winter. So here you can see me coloring all the acorns. My lightest color was E11. My darkest for the bottom half of the acorn is E13. For the caps, I'm using E25 as my lightest color and just coloring all of those in solid. Then I will come in with my darkest color, which for these is E27, and then I will color that over again with my E25 to soften that out. Now going in and around all the acorns with my E59 marker just to have a dark base, making it look more full and not a lot of white open space. For my squirrels, I'm starting with E53 and bringing in E34 as my darkest and then E31 as my lightest. I chose these colors because a lot of the squirrels around where I live are a lighter color, kind of a tan taupe color, so I thought it'd be fun to make them in a lighter shade for today's card. There's so much brown going on, I needed like some variation. And how about a pop of color? So for the wagon, I'm using B24 as my lightest color, B39 as my darkest, and then my midtone is B28, blending out that shadow, and then I'll go over it again with B24. For the top part of the wagon and the handle, I'm using my darkest color, which was that B39. I did color out some orange leaves and some yellow leaves. Also, there is a teeny tiny itsy bitsy die in the Acorn House die set that die cuts out 2 little leaves, and I did some of those as well. And that will be all of my stamped images, and I'm going to add a white highlight to everything. Some of them I waited to put the white highlight on, like the leaves, until I knew how they would be positioned on the card, because you know, a leaf could be this way or that way or up or down, where a squirrel is probably just gonna have its feet on the ground. So I did wait on some of them, and I will do that later. All right, so I'm die cutting out all the images here. I had to do a few passes through because I did have multiples of some of the things, and there they are, all die cut out. I also need to cut out the large cluster of acorns, so I'm doing that leaving a white edge at the top, like a tab, but then cutting on the brown outline all the way around. And I'll show you how that comes into play in a minute. For my background sky, I'm using Salty Ocean, only one color, having it be darker at the top and kind of fade to white as it goes down. And of course, if you're using Distress Oxide ink, you're going to want to splatter it and spritz it and spray it with some water to get that fun oxidization look. And then I'm using some watercolor paints to splatter on some dark blue over that. Here are some pieces I die cut first with the large Slimline die, then with that Hillside border, and then with the Grassy border. So I'm going to use all three of these pieces, starting with Wild Honey ink and then bringing in my ripe persimmons. And so each layer here is going to get a little bit darker, the middle layer being the most blended of the two colors, and then the bottom one having mostly just the ripe persimmons on it. So this will be my ground. I figured in the fall you want the ground to maybe have that reddish orange yellow look because it's like covered with leaves and the grass is dying down. So yeah, I spritzed those with water too, and then splattered them with yellow and orange watercolor paint so they would have the same look as my sky background with that fun splatter. I love the splatter all the things. Here is my die cut Acorn house, the base of it. I'm going around the edge with my antique linen distress ink, and then also where like the top of the acorn cap would hang over, I'm going to try and put a little shadow right there as well. Here's my die cut door from the Acorn House die set. I'm going to open that up and just trace that opening because I want to cut it out. So I'm going to use an X-Acto knife and just go around this, pressing lightly as I go, and then I'll have to go over that light line a couple times. This is the technique that works best for me because I am blade challenged, let's just say. So this is the way I found works best for me. All right, so now I'm using that largest pull tab. I realized I didn't actually need it to be this long. It's gonna be fine, but there's two in that set. One is supposed to be the opening that you create on the camera, and I think that one I could have used right here. It's a little bit shorter. I did cut the opening at the top of the card for where you would grab the pull tab, and I'm covering up the back of the Acorn house with a window sheet, and now I'm figuring out that I didn't actually need to cut the slit in the top of the acorn. I actually need to remove this piece to create the pull tab that I want to create. So I just cut that by eyeballing where my mushroom cap will be. And now I'm going to start putting things all together. So gluing on the door around that opening that I cut, and then I will get my pull tab ready. This mechanism you need for any pull tab that you make, and it's from the Let's Toast pull tab die set. And there you can see the little piece that comes through will hold the part of the card that you want to move up and down. So I am wanting the acorns to move up and down. So I'm going to put some foam tape around my acorn house, creating like an kind of an opening for those acorns to go down into. Now I don't need all of this pull tab base. It's wider, taller than my acorn roof, so I trimmed that down. Now I'm attaching my acorns to my acorn topper, the acorn cap, and I decided I needed it lifted up. I needed some lift between the acorns and the cap. So what I'm going to do is put down 3 layers of my sticky tape. I felt like maybe foam tape would be too thick, so I decided I would go this route, but in the end I think probably some foam squares or foam tape would have worked out. So I'm reattaching that and tucking that in my acorn house, and then it's time to attach the acorn cap to my pull tab mechanism. So I put down some of that double stick tape, and then I am going to use a little bit of glue as well. I like the security of both. So making sure I have that pull tab centered in the opening to move it up and down before I adhere my acorn top to it. And then once that's ready to go, I'm going to snip off the excess, remove the tape, and then just test this out. I had a little bit of that pull tab showing through, and I have a little problem where we'll get back to in just a second because I want you to know about this part. This is the piece that stabilizes that pull tab, but it was way too big or it would have shown in my pull tab opening at the top or the opening on the front of the card. So I cut it down so it was a teeny tiny little itsy bitsy strip. So here you can see the corners of the mushroom. I knew I was going to say it. The acorn cap are interfering with the sides of that acorn house. So I just trimmed that, rounded off those corners. And then I added a piece of colored cardstock for that pull tab, and I stuck that squirrel with the acorn onto that window sheet. So when you open the door, you see him adding another acorn into that house. I added a stack of acorns behind this stump that has a lift the flap opening, and I added a piece of dark brown cardstock behind that. I added my sleeping squirrel, and now it's time to add a sentiment to that bottommost layer of grass that says, "Be grateful for the little things," and I used Lawn Fawn's walnut ink there. And now I'm going to glue on those different levels of my grass there, my hills and my grass. That way I can tuck in all the things. Now my wagon hung off the card. So what I did is I snipped off the handle to the wagon, and then I'm going to re-glue it down, making that handle a little bit shorter for my squirrel. And then it only in the end will hang off a teeny tiny bit, and that's okay because this card is actually going to go on a card base. I needed to trim down the grass a little bit so that you could open that stump, and so I just did that with my scissors. I'm going to add the little stairs to the acorn house to ground it a little bit. I added one window. I did decide I needed two, but I could not find that window die. In the end, I did up adding a second window, and you'll never guess where I found that window die. It was right on the magnet sheet where it belongs. I know. Crazy. Why wouldn't I look there? Oh my word. I did look there 100 times. And it was there the 100th time. The last time I looked, it was there. All right, so now I'm just adding some extra acorns, some of the leaves in and around to fill in my scene. Now I wanted some leaves to be blowing in the air because as I was waiting at the bank the other day, there were leaves just flying off the trees in orange and gold, and it was so pretty with a bright blue sky. So that was my inspiration for this card right here. And that will finish up the card. It's time to attach it to the card base, which measures 8 3/4 by 7.5, and it is scored at 3 3/4. So the Fun foam is going to go around my pull tab but not touch it, so that it's easier to get your fingers on the top of the pull tab and pull it up and down. So when I pull this up and down, you can see it comes way out of the acorn house. It really doesn't need to come all the way out, and so you could have that pull tab opening be shorter so that when you pull it up, the acorns just don't pop out into mid-air. They could have the tiny bottom piece just stay behind the acorn house, and that would help it a lot. There you can see my second orange window I added, and I also added some coloring on the inside of the windows to darken that with a Copic marker there. Isn't it cute? I also added a worm. The first one I colored was too dark, so I colored one a little bit lighter and added that in. So that is episode 2 of my Let's Go Nuts series for the month of October. I thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure you leave a comment for a chance to win today's card, and I will announce that on next week's video. Everything I used is listed and linked for you below, so you can check that out if you're interested, and I will see you all again very soon. Happy stamping. Bye.